True meditation can happen on the city bus while riding to work, or in a waiting room before an appointment. It can happen while stuck in a traffic jam, or while sitting quietly at home in an armchair. It can happen on an airplane or on a park bench. It can happen while walking through nature or while walking through the city. It can happen in your kitchen or in a prison cell, in a hospital bed or at the office. It can happen with the eyes open or closed, in the lotus position or stretched out in a recliner, in solitude or in the midst of a crowd. It can happen in formal meditation, or it can happen spontaneously and unexpectedly while drinking a cup of coffee or sitting at a stoplight. It can be a few seconds, a few minutes, a few hours. It's outside of time. It is always now when you're practicing meditation. So this description of meditation, right, really needs a clear definition of what meditation is. Because if we can do it anywhere, that's what this description is saying. We can do it anywhere, right? What is it that we're doing that we can do anywhere? Most people are familiar with meditation only in the formal practice of meditation. People have this idea that it's sitting cross-legged on a cushion. And it has to do with Eastern religion, Buddhism, or Taoism, or Hinduism. It has to do with or Sufism. But in reality, meditation is not a religion. And although it's practiced in a lot of these religious or philosophical understandings, the practice itself is not a religion. And what the practice boils down to is paying attention. The simplest way to describe what meditation is paying attention. But it's paying attention in a particular way. It's paying attention in such a way where you're aware, you're paying attention to awareness, and you're paying attention to awareness being aware of the mental activity. You're paying attention to awareness and to awareness being aware of the mental activity. This is what the practice of meditation is. So how is it different from not practicing meditation? Well, when you're not practicing meditation, your attention is involved with what you're doing. Your attention is involved with what's happening. You know, if you're practicing meditation, the practice of meditation means you're not just aware of what's happening, you're aware of how your mind is interpreting what's happening, and you're aware of the awareness of that mind. And that's not what's happening ordinarily for most people. For most people are living their lives identified as a physical body, identified as a personality, and then as that body and that personality, they're dealing with whatever is happening in their life. And so when things happen as that body and that personality, right, there are thoughts that occur, there are emotions that happen, there are physical sensations that happen as we're living life, as we're dealing with whatever it is that's happening. We're having these interpretations and reactions in the mind. And for most of us, our daily life is a function of the thoughts that we're having about what's happening, the feelings that we're having about what's happening. And the feelings and the thoughts that we're having about what's happening occur to us to be the feelings and the thoughts of me, the personality. So we're not aware of ourselves as awareness. We're aware of ourselves as a personality, and we're aware of the personality as the personality is relating to what's happening. And that is the ordinary way that people experience life. In the practice of meditation, we're paying attention to the awareness that is typically being ignored, and we're aware of the activity of the mind that is either the reaction or the response to what's happening. Now, we're so aware of the thoughts, we're aware of the emotions, we're aware of the physical sensations, and we're aware of the awareness that's aware of all that. And when we're aware of that which is aware of all that, we're experiencing what could be called the truth. The truth. Why is it called the truth? Because the truth means what is real. Right? And if we're aware of the truth, and that means we're aware of what is real is the awareness, not the personality. So this is very important, because this type of meditation that I'm referring to is not just for stress reduction. This type of meditation, while it does reduce stress, the purpose of this type of meditation is to begin to be awake and aware of who you actually are, and begin to experience your life and what's happening from that view, instead of the mental activity and the idea that you're the personality, which is the source of a lot of human suffering. In the simplified space of meditation, we can also begin to see more clearly the workings of thought and of all the inner mental busyness that typically occupies so much of our attention. The virtual reality created by thinking and imagining, the inner striving and efforting. See, most of us aren't aware of the fact that the thought activity that occurs in our mind is creating a virtual reality. A virtual reality. A virtual reality means that it's not real, it's virtual. Just like if you're playing a video game, you're dealing with a virtual reality, it's not real. Right? So what the wisdom teachings tell us is that what human beings take to be a real reality is not a real reality, it's a virtual reality. What's virtual about it is that it's occurring in the mind. And the experience human beings are having of their life occurs in the mind, and it's a virtual reality. It occurs in the mind in terms of thoughts that are interpretations about what's happening. It occurs in the mind in terms of emotions, which are reactions to what's happening. And we consider those thoughts and those reactions to be an accurate, factual representation of what's happening, of reality. And they're not. They're not. And it's the source of a lot of human suffering. So the virtual reality is created by thinking and imagining, the inner striving and efforting, the judging and comparing and evaluating, the storytelling, the replaying of past events, the anticipation of future events, the planning, the regretting, the shaming, and the blaming. And we can begin to see through this conceptual overlay and the mirage-like me who seems to be at the center of it. So what they're saying here is that through the practice of meditation, you can start to see directly for yourself, so you don't have to believe anything. You can start to see directly for yourself that who you take yourself to be is no different than a mirage. It's an appearance. That's what a mirage is. But a mirage is something that appears to be a certain way, and it's not. If you see a mirage of water. If you're in a desert and you see a mirage of water, it's an appearance that there's water, but there's no water. If you get close and you examine it, you see there's no water. The same thing is true with the idea of the personality, the identity that we take ourselves to be. You can call it a mirage because if you get close enough, if you slow down and you look closely at it, you can see that there is nothing there. Just like a mirage of water in a desert, there is nothing there. You take yourself to be a personality, yeah? But if I ask you, where is this personality that you take yourself to be? Where is it? Is it located in the body? If it's located in the body, where is it in the body located? You know, if you examine, if you do an examination, if you do an inquiry to see what is the truth about myself, am I a personality? Am I a self-concept? If you look and see what is the truth about myself, you will discover what the ancient wisdom teachers said you will discover, which is that the personality literally does not exist. And if you take yourself to be something that does not exist, that only occurs in your mental activity, you're setting yourself up for a lot of suffering, because this personality that does not exist is a constant process of changing thoughts and feelings, all the time changing. What I think today is different from what I thought yesterday. What I think tomorrow is going to be different what I think today. How I feel now is going to be different how I'm going to feel later today. So these feelings and these thoughts are constantly changing, but we attribute all these feelings and these thoughts to something that's not changing, that we call the personality. But the personality is always changing. So the idea that we have that it's not changing is a misunderstanding. It's unstable and it's always changing. That's why it's uncomfortable to exist as this personality. Through the process of meditation, it becomes possible to slow down, to sit still, to be quiet, and to pay attention in such a way where you recognize directly for yourself that the awareness that is real, that is alive, that is awake, that is here right now, is your actual self, is what you are. The awareness that is always here, the awareness that never changes, the awareness that is absolutely stable, the awareness that has no age, the awareness that has no form, is the actual true nature. And through the practice of meditation, by slowing down and paying attention, we can start to be aware of this awareness that is our actual true nature. And we can start to practice being aware of this awareness that is our actual true nature in all the circumstances that we find ourselves in life. That's what I was talking about earlier. You can practice this anywhere, anytime. You begin to practice it formally because if you attempt to pay attention to the awareness while you're in the midst of your everyday life, there's just too many things coming at you. There's too much activity. There's too much happening to be able to focus your attention and hold your attention steady in order to notice the awareness. So in the beginning, we begin by practicing formally. You begin by practicing formally, meaning that you practice somewhere where it's quiet enough, where there's not a lot of activity, where there's not a lot of distractions, so you can begin to develop your ability to pay attention. And in this formal practice, we pay attention to the body breathing by paying attention to the belly moving as the body's breathing, so we have a place to anchor our attention. So we sit still, we don't move, we're silent, and we move attention to the belly moving, so we can begin to be directly aware of the awareness of the body breathing. And when we're directly aware of the awareness of the body breathing, it becomes possible to notice that this awareness that's aware of the body breathing is what we are. It's the reality of what we are. It's our true nature. It's called the natural state. And the experience of this natural state is an experience of well-being. So if we practice meditation formally in the beginning, so we can get good at maintaining our attention, and we practice it formally in the beginning so we can get good at noticing the awareness that is always here, that is never not here. Once we get good enough at the formal practice, we can begin to practice informally, resting as awareness for brief moments as often as possible, under all circumstances. under all circumstances. So the purpose of the practice of meditation over time is to become directly aware of your true nature and become directly aware of what it's like to be what you actually are in relationship to what's happening in the world. And what the teachings tell us is if you do this practice, and if you experience the reality of what you are, you will experience a natural state of well-being, happiness, contentment, and peace. That's what the promise of the teachings are. That's what the practice has to offer. But it's not free lunch. It doesn't happen overnight. And therefore, most people are unable to do the practice because just to sit still and be present to the mental activity in the beginning is uncomfortable. It feels restless. And so people don't stick around for it. You know? People are typically inherently impatient. People want things sooner rather than later. So people go after the things that they can get fast, not slow. And if it takes too long to get something, people start to become less interested in it. Not just meditation, but anything. If we're talking about playing the piano, why don't more people play the piano, right? Because you have to have the patience to practice playing the piano until you get good enough to play the piano. The same thing is true with meditation. You have to practice the simple, basic form of meditation until you get good enough at the simple, basic form of meditation that you don't have to think as much about the form in order to do the practice. Just like music. If you practice playing the piano long enough, the time will come when you don't have to look at the keys to play music. You have a direct relationship with the piano. If you practice meditation long enough, the time will come when you don't have to think about moving your attention to the awareness of the body breathing. You become familiar with the experience of being the awareness. You start to become familiar with what it feels like when you're in the experience of presence. You start to become familiar when you're in the experience of being awake and present to what's happening. And when you start to become familiar with that experience, you can practice it anywhere and any time. And if you do practice it anywhere and any time, your life will begin to start to change. You will begin to experience your life as easier. There will be more peace. There will be more satisfaction. There will be more contentment. Why? Because the experience you're having of your true nature is an experience of the true nature that never changes and is never affected by what's happening in your life. So this is a short, sweet, and direct explanation of the practice of meditation, why it's important to do it formally, when you learn how to do it formally, how you can do it informally in all situations, and if you do it in all situations over time, you will start to experience your life in a completely different way. You'll have a different view of life. You'll be seeing through different eyes. And you'll be having an experience of life that is naturally, spontaneously satisfying and fulfilling. That's what there is to be had through the practice of meditation. But just like everything else, the reason most people don't play the piano is the same reason why most people don't practice meditation, and it's the same reason why most people are walking around being neurotic and needing to have drugs in order to feel comfortable.